All right, Tom Khoury, candidate for school committee. Tell us why you think you should be elected.
How are you? And thank you for this opportunity today with the Herald News to express our views and our feelings. I was born and raised in the Flint neighborhood of Fall River. I was educated in our public schools as a child. I went to the Aldrich School, the Davis School, Watson School, and then graduated from Durfee High School in 1972. I then went to SMU, which today is UMass Dartmouth, received a degree in political science and got my minors in education. I didn't work right away after college. I went on the road as a musician for many years and played music all over New England for a number of years and fell in love with that and realized once I had a family, I have to come to my senses to make a real living, at which point I was appointed a social studies teacher at Durfee High School in 1986, and for 10 years had the joy of working there in the social studies department, teaching and loving it, and then realizing through that period of teaching in the classroom that my calling was to really try to help kids on a more intense behavioral level. So I got my master's in school adjustment counseling from Cambridge College in 1993, and proceeded to spend 20 years as a high school counselor working in the behavioral realm, in the clinical realm, and through it all having a great career, touching base with the kids of severe needs from all over the city, and got very involved on a human level through that period, and created two award-winning programs in the mid-90s. When Mayor Lambert was in term, we were doing things at Durfee High School to curb racism and ethnic tensions and the bigotry that existed in society. So we created a program called One Earth, One People Under the Sun, of which became an award-winning multicultural and ethnic diversity program. We're very proud of that. It rolled on for many, many years, and we touched all the schools in the city, including the parochial schools. We touched the cultural organizations in the cities and ran celebrations and marches and panel discussions. And we had a chance to learn from the people directly what was bothering them about, racism and prejudice. And we had open discussions, and we were able to develop and build tolerance through all of those discussions, and helping the kids, especially in school, to open their minds toward one another with a much deeper sense of respect. When that program finally wound down, I fell into a wonderful program that a friend of mine, Paul Leet, another counselor, had created called Peaceful Coalition. And when I saw the power of his program, I quickly joined on board. And for about 14 or 15 years, we ran Peaceful Coalition, and were awarded many times in the community through Fall River Healthy Cities and the U.S. Attorney, or Carmen Ortiz in Boston, for our work with especially gang-involved boys and kids who were victims of violence, not only domestic, but the violence in school. And we were able to work with these kids and keep them connected to their education rather than having them drop out. So as that goes on, a lot of kids just give up and drop out, but we wouldn't, we developed long-term relationships with these kids and helped them to understand the power of their education, because once they graduated from high school, they matured into adulthood, and hopefully they're working real jobs, honest jobs, and skilled jobs. So we feel like we really impacted the school and curbed a lot of violence around school, and helped our community by having these kids become productive members of society. So it's just a pleasure to be involved with those programs. I have 4 children who are all students in Fall River Public Schools, all graduates of Durfee High School, and fortunately for my wife and I, all went on to college. but I cut my teeth working with the more disenfranchised student, and as a school committee member, I would keep my vision focused on the child who may not be college bound, so that we could look at programs in the schools to help them develop real world hands-on skills through the industrial arts, through technical education, maybe through the reemergence of the business curriculum at Durfee High School, which was let go when MCAS had so much impact on our curriculum today. MCAS takes up a lot of time throughout the school year for teachers in elementary, middle, and high school, at the expense of business curriculum, where children used to go to classes and learn how to balance a checkbook and do some real world stuff that I think could help them greatly if they're not going to college, to open up a business when they become in their early 20s and help our community that way. These are the people who end up staying in Fall River, because we know that a lot of college-bound students leave Fall River due to the opportunity of their degree programs, as my son did. Once my son graduated from Durfee, he went to school in Washington, D.C. and still lives down there. So I think about the kids that may not be college bound and what can we do for them. And I know that I am a proponent of a new high school, totally. After having spent 27 years in the current building, it is a completely flawed building. It was designed without any vision. It was designed without proper oversight. It was designed through a lack of transparency, unlike the new project, which is being handled through public forums and discussion and will be subject to a public vote. And I attended a meeting just last week on the new Durfee High School and had a chance to see up front what's being drawn up, and I'm very pleased to see that they are addressing a lot of the physical plant and infrastructure problems of the current building through having a building that's going to have properly opened windows. They're going to have properly slanted roofs so that the roofs don't leak as they do in the current building incessantly. The playing fields are going to be artificial so that the kids don't hurt themselves on the wetlands that the school is built on. In the past, kids were subject to a rash of athletic injuries on that soft, wet field. And so a lot of the issues that plague the current physical plant of Durfee High School should be rectified. And I know, as an office holder, I have to be held, to a higher standard as far as the public trust and public finances are concerned. It's going to be an expensive project, but it's going to be a project that would turn education toward the 21st century in Fall River. And that's what we need to set our sights on. Education that would set our students up for 21st century jobs and skills. And this would be a driver for economic development in the city of Fall River. It would also be a lure for bigger companies to set their sights on locating here. And we have so much available space and so much potential in Fall River. And I believe that the city is on an upswing, and that's really good to see. So through my work as a career educator in the Fall River Public Schools, through my family's commitment to the city of Fall River, and I forgot to mention that my wife was also a teacher for 34 years at Cuss Middle School. So through my family's commitment to our city and my children's education here and the education that I've mentored for the hundreds of kids I've worked with in the school department, I love this city, I respect our school department, and this is why I'm running for the school committee after I've spent my career and now am retired.
All right. What would you say needs to be done to ensure the level 4 schools in the district improve, and other level 4 schools in the district don't, or other schools don't become level 4 schools in the district?
Well, I see that is a problem of the demographics that we have in the city. We have a lot of low educational attainment in Fall River. We need more supports for the teachers in the classrooms, and at the elementary level, those classrooms are stuffed with potentially 28, 29, and 30 kids. And I know the superintendent currently is working heavily on monitoring classroom size and working to lower classroom size. This is a big issue in this election. I totally support it. So classroom size has to be lowered so teachers could be more effective in their strategies and in their pedagogy in the classroom. And I also support the addition of paraprofessionals in the classroom because I believe they could become the right arms of the classroom teacher. And they could work, because in a classroom we work on what they call the workshop model. So teachers set forth a lesson and they have kids work in small groups at trying to achieve results. And so the teacher monitors that by walking around to each group and seeing how each group is progressing in their daily classroom activity. The paraprofessional could also be a huge support, especially when there are issues of behavior. There's hyperactivity, attention deficit disorder problems amongst many young children in the classroom that oftentimes cause disruption and get in the way. So I think paraprofessionals are a real practical way, and lowered class sizes are a real effective way at trying to improve level 4 programs, level 4 schools I mean. But I also want to add this, Will. As a retired adjustment counselor, I know that effective relationships with kids and in increasing small social skills groups work totally effectively at kids learning how to dialogue with one another and developing listening skills and respect for not only their teachers but for other kids. I am currently working at a level 4 school. I just started my work this week at a level 4 school after running a pilot program there in the springtime with 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade boys. And we will meet once a week for an hour, and we'll have a social skills group, and we'll talk about respect building, we'll talk about dialogue building, we'll talk about prejudice reduction, we'll talk about violence reduction, we'll talk about community service, we'll talk about school service, we'll talk about family, we'll talk about responsibility. We're trying to drive home the theme that each student is responsible for their own action. The only way that that can be developed is through connecting and developing relationships. And that's what we did in Peaceful Coalition, and that's what I will do as a worker now in the public schools, developing these social skills groups. And if I'm on the school committee, I will work to ensure that social skills groups are looked at as a solution throughout the schools in our city.
All right. Any closing thoughts?
I have worked really, really hard on this campaign. I asked my wife for permission to run. She granted it to me. I asked my sick mom for permission to run. She granted it to me because I know that this is going to be a major commitment. But in me, you have a candidate who has been committed to education over the past 30 some odd years. And as a retired educator, my fire still burns inside of me. I have a deep commitment to this community, to the wealth and the health of this community. Education is an economic force. Education is a progressive force. It's the way of the future. And I look forward to having a hand in that as we move forward. I respectfully ask the voters for their consideration on Election Day, November 7th. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.